Anti-Semitism, racism, they are stains on mankind. They make us less human. They make us ashamed of who we are. When you look at the surveys that are being published very frequently about racism and about anti-Semitism, what you see is they're on the rise again. We know from the past what could happen if we do not tackle these problems right in the beginning. A few years ago, the Anne Frank House decided to become active in the world of football. Because what we saw from research was that anti-Semitism and racism are becoming more and more an issue in stadiums and in the whole world around football.
Anti-Semitic incidents within football mostly refer to verbal expressions of anti-Semitic behavior. They can also be visible expressions. Usually we're talking about supporters chanting.
What we want to do is try to let them find out themselves that what they are singing is really hurtful. Feyenoord has a motto. They say Feyenoord is for everyone. And by singing these songs, you're excluding fellow supporters who are not comfortable with visiting the matches anymore.
In the last years, a lot of supporters were inspired by our programs, workshops and lectures.
The strength of the Changing the Chants project is that we have professional football clubs, of course the Anne Frank House, and then us, an international member organization working to tackle all forms of discrimination and racism in football. So it's a good mix of different types of organizations.
Changing the Chants is the first attempt to bring the discussion about possible measures against anti-Semitism in football on a European level.
Changing the Chants is a project countering anti-Semitism in football by educational means.
I used to be a BVB supporter my whole life. I followed the team to nearby every game. With friends of mine, I've organized a lot of stuff in the south stand of the stadium. So we have organized choreographies, also in away games, and we followed the team. In 2008, we took part in a program of BVB and visited the memorial site at Dachau after the away game in Munich. And due to this trip, I realized a personal interest in visiting Auschwitz. In 2011, friends of mine and me organized the first educational trip of BVB supporters to the memorial site and museum Auschwitz-Birkenau. We have met Wilhelm Brasse, former prisoner and survivor of Auschwitz, who shared his story with us. In his point of view, we aren't responsible for the things that happened in the past, but we are responsible for the things that happen nowadays. This was so inspiring for me that I started to be active in this kind of work.
Ich glaube, dass der BVB ja durch diese jetzt schon 12-jährige Antidiskriminierungsarbeit natürlich auch gesellschaftlich da schon ein Ausrufungszeichen gesetzt hat. Und wir haben ja sowohl mit Yad Vashem eine sehr freundschaftliche Verbindung und in Auschwitz kann man ja ehrlicherweise sagen, dass wir sowohl zum Museum als auch zur Jugendbegegnungsstätte schon sehr, sehr partnerschaftliche Beziehungen in den Jahren aufgebaut haben. Und das ist, glaube ich, für den ganzen Club eine Herzensangelegenheit.
The International Youth Meeting Center is an educational institution based on the history of Auschwitz. Groups stay multiple days and we support them with preparing the visit of Auschwitz, but also summarize their visit afterwards. With this project, the football clubs offer their supporters a possibility to connect with the history of Auschwitz.
It was established by Germans in 1940 in the suburbs of Oświęcim, a Polish city that was annexed to the Third Reich by the Nazis. Its name was changed to Auschwitz, which also became the name of Konzentrationslager Auschwitz, the largest of the extermination centers where the Endlösung der Judenfrage, the Nazis' plan to murder European Jews, was carried out.
When we start visiting the historical sites, we start at the Stammlager. So people will enter the Stammlager, the first part of Auschwitz, and first of all learn about the different episodes we can tell about Auschwitz. We work with the Dortmund biographies. We trace the deportations from each and every local community. So, for instance, there was a large group of Dutch Jews from Rotterdam who in the end were brought to Rzepź-Żydowice, a small sub-camp, labor camp, where many of them died. Even though there's nothing to see today anymore, there's a memorial, and I think this is the moment where we connect the history of Auschwitz to the local history. So when people from Rotterdam would go to Auschwitz and visit Rzepź-Żydowice, so then they realize, okay, this is how my city and this place is connected, and my people from my club even were deported to Auschwitz, and this is the place where they most likely die.
More than 100 members of my family were murdered there, so for me it was a forbidden place, I thought. But then when I was asked to go with the group to Auschwitz, then I thought, well, it's for the supporters. I have a heart full of this club, Feyenoord. I was sitting in the stadium many times and I heard those chants, "Who is not jumping is a Jew." And well, I'm not feeling good at that moment because I know it gives a little pain in my heart, but much more pain in the heart of other Jewish people. We went there and well, I still can't express all those feelings that went around in my body, but also went around in the minds and in the bodies of the other participants. And I saw the faces of the supporters coming out of that place. I could see they were so impressed they will never forget it all of their life.
with a group of supporters of Feyenoord, with the staff of Feyenoord as well as some other people, all associated with Feyenoord. We went to visit Auschwitz in Poland. It was for 1 week or so. We had guided tours, learned a lot from it. Yeah, it was quite impressive to look at all the worst parts of history as we know it. Football is for everyone, not only for the fanatic supporters, for old people, young people. If you're gay or a lesbian, if you're black, white, it doesn't matter. You should go to football and be loved. And if some people fall out of this because of some chants or because of behavior on the stands, I think it's good to do something about that, so everyone is included.
In the summer of 2019, I visited the workshop that Borussia did with their supporters in Auschwitz. Learned from that and tried to see if we could organize something similar with our fans here in Rotterdam. My colleague Maarten got in touch with the Anne Frank House. They were talking about how to tackle anti-Semitic chants inside the stadium. That's when we decided to work with them and develop a workshop to tackle these issues. We do a lot of activities with our supporters here, including a workshop on anti-Semitism. One of the programs we do here in Rotterdam is a local workshop with supporters who have a stadium ban. During this day, it's a one-day workshop. We visit all kinds of places. For instance, we visit the Children's Monument in Rotterdam. It's a monument with a lot of names of children who were deported to the different death camps. Then we go to Warehouse 24, it's really close by. That's a place from which the Jews were gathered and were sent to the different death camps. And we also visit a church very close to our stadium, in which 2 Jewish families were in hiding, and they even had a baby there during the war.
What mostly is done by authorities is repressing that anti-Semitism by punishing fans or punishing football clubs with fines or banning them from matches, if they do anything at all. Within Changing the Chants, we look into 3 different ways of dealing with anti-Semitism. First one is a preventive way, where you try to encourage supporters of a football club to learn about the history of their club, the Jewish history of their club, the history of Jewish suffering within their club and their city, to learn about the past and to take those lessons into the future. The second way of dealing with anti-Semitism can be found in taking into considerations football supporters who misbehave, that for example use anti-Semitic slogans in the stadium. You can try to educate them about the Jewish history, but also what it means for Jewish fans of their own club who are confronted with the anti-Semitic slogans. The third group we try to approach are supporters who are convicted in court cases, who are found guilty of misbehaving, of using anti-Semitic slogans on the stands. We want the judges to force them to take part in educational lessons to try and change their behavior.
What we've been doing as Changing the Chants researchers, we've been trying to find as many projects in Europe. We've sort of casted a web and tried to find out what is happening within football in Europe to counter anti-Semitic behavior. Once we've had an overview of what is happening, we started conducting interviews with people involved in these projects, and we asked questions about what works and what not, but also sustainability, effectiveness, if they see a behavioral change. And the next steps are coming up with some sort of guideline and a compendium so that other people can learn from what we have found. Tackling anti-Semitic behavior within football definitely has an effect on wider society as well, mostly because we should not see football as isolated from wider society. It's many people watch football, and it is a big part of many of our lives.
Last year I met a participant of our first educational trip in 2011. In the first trip she was 14, and now we met again when she was 22, and she told us that the program had such a powerful impact on her that she decided to study to become a lawyer because she wanted to make sure that something like that could never happen again.
Recognizing that racism and anti-Semitism are a big problem in our current societies is one thing. Finding out the most effective ways to tackle them is quite another. I'm convinced that what we need is a broad range of approaches, a broad range of organizations, a broad range of methods that will help us to overcome these problems. And we are mainly focused on the educational approach. I think it's a very important part of tackling anti-Semitism and racism, but we cannot do it alone. We need a coalition of many organizations that share the sense of urgency that we have about these issues and that are willing to help us, and we are willing to help them in order to overcome these problems.
And we do this educational work in football because we know that we could use a football club, and we know that we could use the radiance of a football club to address people, to educate people, to meet them in their all-day and everyday life. It's important to say that we don't need this anti-Semitic incident to act in this way.
We have established a whole program against discrimination and for diversity within the BVB fan base. The aim is to empower a positive force in the fan network and to educate them, to help them in creating their own activities and to establish positive climate in the stands.
I know it's hard. You only have so many supporters in your workshops during a year, but I think it can make a difference. Hopefully in the end, in a couple of years, these songs are not heard anymore, or at least maybe if some supporters start singing, that other supporters will sing a different song louder, so that the anti-Semitic songs are not heard in the stadium anymore.
The ideal outcome of this project is that we reach as many decision makers and stakeholders in football who are willing to work with this topic.
We will spread the guidelines through the European football community, from football associations to football clubs in professional level and amateur level, to football supporters, football players, and try to convince them that these guidelines need to be part of their policies, part of their identity in confronting anti-Semitism within football until there is no anti-Semitism in football anymore.